Good afternoon, I'm Matt Soper, Hampshire Carnivorous Plants, and I want to tell you a little bit about our bog garden, how we constructed it, how we maintain it and what we're growing in it. So a little bit about everything. Now the bog garden, this one here is the most recent one, and it's constructed of these sleepers. So we've got one on edge and one on top, which is drilled down in to make this oblong shape. We've then lined it with old capillary matting. You could use old carpet underlay, anything that would stop the liner from being pierced. Now the liner we've used is a heavy duty silage sheet, which is relatively cheap to buy, but you could use a butyl pond liner, which would last a lot longer, I'm sure. The growing medium we've got in the bog is this particular one is a mixture of peat and Malcourt pine, so a composted pine bark, and this one works pretty well. So it's a 50-50 mix of sphagnum peat and Malcourt pine bark. The other ones here are pure peat, and a lot of it is old second-hand peat. And this one here, which was the first bog garden, the peat in there is well over 12 years old. That's one thing worth bearing in mind, is once the peat's in there, it doesn't need changing. We find that when it rains, it seems to get washed through and it lasts forever. Now, the aspect, which is quite important, you want to bear this in mind when you're building one. This gets full sun from morning till night. Really, really bright and sunny. They really do need that, a very, very bright sunny position. So bear that in mind where you're placing your bog garden. I mean, if you can move it around, you can move it into a good sunny spot, but if you're constructing one that's going to be here all the time, then make sure it's in a really, really sunny spot. Water. Now we are using rainwater. If we pop round the other side, I'll show you. Now we water the plants with rainwater. As I was saying, a lot of people ask us this. This is piped in from our water storage off the back of the greenhouse. Another question we've been asked is, how often do we water it? Well, seeing as it's undrained, it is relatively boggy. Now we've had a bit of a warm spell here, but it has been raining a lot this year, and we've only watered them once this year. So you don't need to give them that much, but obviously in July, that's when they use the most. They do need quite a bit of water. Once we get into August, the rain starts again, and they're pretty, you know, they do last a long time. You don't need to water that much. Now, another question we're asked a lot, I must mention, is people ask if we pierce the liner at all. No, this is completely solid liner in here, so it retains a lot of water. It's like a swimming pool or a pond, just with peat in it. It's a very boggy, wet, bog garden. That's what you need, lots of water, lots of sunlight, and they do very well. Now, another thing that we've asked, I've tried to answer as many questions in one short video as possible, is pests and diseases. And what some of you have been having problems with are blackbirds pulling out sphagnum moss, and we haven't had that problem until this year, believe it or not, and we've had the odd one or two pulling bits and pieces of sphagnum out. Not that bad, maybe we're fortunate, but yeah, we have had a little bit this year. Another one bit of a problem that we've just started getting again as well is slugs and snails. We don't get that many. I've seen some pictures of other customers which have had quite a few of their pitcher plants gnawed at, but we had a little bit earlier on in the season, but as the weather's warmed up, we haven't had many at all. Now, maintenance of the bog. Well, there's not much you have to do to them really, apart from keep everything damp and also weeding. There is a bit of weeding involved, and we get bits and pieces coming up here. There's some small weeds, so if you can just keep them clean and tidy, and also pick off any of the dead foliage. In the winter months we do cut most of the foliage back, so each year they have a whole new set of foliage coming up. The plants that we don't cut back so much are varieties such as purpurea, courtii, Dixie lace is an example here. That sort of plant, we let them retain their foliage, and then we remove the previous year's foliage, sort of around about May time, just to tidy the plants up. What we have done in the bog, which we found is really effective and looks great, is introduce sphagnum moss. You can see here. Now we sell small bags on the website, and then we chop it up fine. We have done a video on YouTube about this, and then lay it out over the bog. And these sundews have come up in the moss. The sphagnum moss does have must have the seed in it, and nearly every bag has a few. So yeah, they look fantastic. This is rotundifolia. There's an intermedia here, but the rotundifolias that have been coming up and they are massive. You can see here, they're really large ones, much larger than the ones I've seen in the New Forest. And a question I've been asked a lot is, what can you grow in the bog garden year round outside in the UK? Well, you've got quite a few you can grow. We've been trialling all different things over the years, and the things we've had most success with are some of the Sarracenia hybrids, species such as Flava, the yellow and the red forms have done really well. Flava cuprea, exceptional out in the bog garden. Purpurea, this is Heterophylla form here. Purpurea venosa. Sundew wise, obviously rotundifolia, intermedia and anglica. But one that I found does extremely well is filiformis, exceptional. Drosera binata, very good. Drosera capensis, both forms, the red and the typical form. They do come up a bit later, but they're fully hardy, do very, very well, and they seed around the bog. Drosera spatulata. I've tried cephalotus, it lasted a couple of years here. It survives, it doesn't thrive. I think if I protected it over winter, it would have still been going, but I wouldn't say it's great outside. But you can get it to grow if you protect it over winter. But I mean, there's quite a few you could grow, and obviously almost forgot about it, Venus flytrap, Dyneema scipula, does very well. So here's a Dyneema scipula, Venus flytrap. This one's been in this bog garden about 4 years now. It's just starting to come into flower. As I mentioned before, over here, this is Filiformis, does fantastically well out in the bog garden. Really good, and that's spread up, and I started off with just 3 clumps, and from those 3 clumps we've got about 11 clumps around the bog gardens now over the period of about 4 years. And also, I should have mentioned it before, Pinguicula grandiflora does very well, as does vulgaris. I don't have vulgaris in the bog, we've just got grandiflora, which does very well. Anyway, I hope you found that useful, and I hope it's answered some of your questions. But thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again in one of our other videos.